Hello folks, David from David Sobery Electrical Services Limited. This is a little off-the-cuff video filmed on the mobile phone, so apologies for the crap audio and the shaky camera work. But we're in a rather glorious location out in the sticks today. Let's have a little look at some of the landscaping that's gone on here, and then have a look at why it's perhaps not so great when it comes to the insulation resistance, which is why we're here today. I mean, this place has obviously been landscaped fairly recently, and how much do you reckon they spent on it? Does this look like it's going to be cheap to you? No, I don't think so. This is obviously a lot of money gone into this. This is a big place. We're out in the sticks. They've got a pool, they've got an aquarium down there, they've got a hot tub, and that's what we're here for today, because the hot tub is tripping the RCBO. Why do you reckon that is? Well, we've had the meter on there recording the insulation resistance for the circuit, and we're getting pretty much a fat zero. Let's go and have a look at what we are getting in fact. There's one angry fucking dog. Testing line neutral to earth at 500 volts. And we get a load of shit. Tracing this cable, it comes from the outbuilding, which is in front of us there. Disappears into the ground somewhere. And it seems to go through some socket outlets. My line tracer indicates it passes through this point here, this one here, this one here, which is on some thin looking SY cable. Let's look at that. This one here, sockets aplenty. And then we come down to our hot tub connection down there. It doesn't go through this little lot here, and you can see, I mean, obviously money has been spent on this place as a whole to get it all landscaped, but the quality of the electrical work is gash. I mean, there's just a clusterfuck of cables spidering off all over the place, including twin and earth disappearing into the wall there. I never like to see twin and earth outside the house. I know some people put it up. I've seen it degrade. In fact, here's a picture of twin and earth degrading on a recent job that we came across. We did this one last week, but we've got twin and earth disappearing out into God knows where there. We've got whisker boxes all over the place. Goodness knows what they're like inside. Hopefully all right, if they've been sealed properly. We've got armoured spidering off everywhere. We've got SY cable on view. We've got going on here, there's more armoured just under the surface here. I mean, it's everywhere in this place. This looks like the work, not of an electrician, but perhaps of a landscaper who thinks he knows what he's doing, but doesn't, and has just shoved something in that has worked for a certain point and then gone horribly wrong. Let's have a look at some of these accessories. That one looks okay physically, but look down here at the state of this poor old time guard socket. That doesn't look great, does it? I think we'll start, because this looks like the first one in the chain. I can't see anything else going down there. There may be something I'm missing though, so I think we'll have a look behind there first and see what we can see. The back of that time guard socket, and I think it's one that David Attenborough might be interested in looking at, because I reckon we've got some new forms of life going on in here. But obviously an IP rated socket should not be in that condition, which suggests it's been improperly sealed. And if we have a look down here, not only do we have a 20mm knockout that's been knocked out for some reason, leaving a gaping hole for things to crawl into, but the back of the socket is not sealed correctly. We've got the end of an armoured cable coming in here, which hasn't been terminated properly. It's quite open at the back there, so the moisture running down the wall is coming in through that hole. So we've got creepy crawlies and we've got water ingress. I've had to cut it out because I can't undo the screws, they're just rusted solid, so I've had to cut it out to get this socket disconnected. But just with this one alone off, let's have a look at what it's doing to our IR reading now, which was a big fat zero before, if you recall. Removing that one socket has boosted it up to nearly 8 megaohms, so it should no longer trip the RCBO. Not as high as I'd like. My tester goes up to 999. I'd rather see something up there, but obviously that was a cause of the problem. But one thing you can see here, there's only one cable coming in, so if this is going off to the next socket in the chain, There's obviously a junction buried here somewhere. Goodness knows where, or goodness knows how deep. I'm not going to try and find it, but it suggests that that junction perhaps isn't quite compromised. Let's have a closer look inside these remaining sockets and see what sort of condition they're in. First one isn't so bad. They've at least put some silicone sealant on there. There's a drain hole there that this fat spider's gone into. Come on mate, out you go. But otherwise that doesn't look too bad. Again, the quality of workmanship certainly isn't great, and water can get in around where these screws are here, but at least there's a drain hole. And the socket itself looks to be fairly sound. So again, only one cable coming in, isn't there? So there must be again another junction buried under the earth here. This one appears to be another compromised enclosure, same problem as last time. The armoured isn't correctly terminated, it's poking through the wall. It's got a big 20mm hole around it, some electrical tape, which is always a sign of top workmanship, and a load of gunge has got in there, both through the drain hole and through the openings at the rear. I noticed also, as we saw earlier, this SY cable coming off it, which appears, I suspect, by the looks of it, to go to these lights. This is a 32 amp circuit and this cable is 1.5mm. It's not fused down. I don't know if it goes to any other point. Not sure how these lights are operated. The homeowner's not here, so I don't know if there's a switch I'm missing somewhere or if there's a sensor, but there certainly doesn't seem to be a fuse. It just comes straight off there and disappears again into the flower beds behind. Personally, I don't like running 230 volts around a garden. If I'd have installed pillar lights like these, I'd have used either salve ones, or I'd have used 230 volt ones converted to salve and then run 12 volts to them. A 12 volt cable is never going to give you a shock, and it's never going to trip anything if water gets to where it shouldn't be or anything like that. So yeah, that's interesting and not great. I think I'll disconnect that socket and that SY cable, and we'll again have a look and see what it's done to our IR reading.
You can see the wood side. Yeah, you're just about to see the
numbers are going up, so we're up to 1010. One last socket in the chain before we move on to the connection point for the hot tub. Let's have a look inside this one here and see what horrors await. Now this one looks alright on the outside, but you open it up and fucking hell. Look at the size of those slugs in there. Gross, isn't it? Now interestingly, we have got two cables coming in here. Two armoureds. The sheaths aren't earthed, and I say that. It looks like some kind of bodgy earthing has been done, but yeah, it's crap, isn't it? I'm wondering actually whether this other cable going off is a feed to the next point out, or if it's again another lighting feed going off somewhere. Let's move on to what I believe is the final point, which is where the hot tub connects. And this one's going to be a little bit more awkward just because of the physical access, because what we have here is a hot tub stuck right in front of where our connection point is. Well, I can get the camera down there, but same again, awful termination, hole at the back, moisture and debris ingress. But we're going to have to obviously do something about all these crap connections along the way. And the question I've got before I do anything else is the earth fault loop path any good? So I've got a loop on now and do some R1, R2 testing. So I want to know, do we have continuity on the armour? Do we have continuity on the earth? And is the earth fault loop impedance number within specification for the MCB or the RCBO rather that it's hanging off? On the case, we're going to see if there's any loop on here. I've taken to plaiting my leads together, which I find is a rather good way of stopping them from getting all tangled up when you pull them out of the box. It works rather well. So I've got one connector on the earth, one connector on the line. What does this pick up on the screen here? Probably not very well, but let's select continuity and hit go. And we have no continuity line to earth, so I haven't disconnected any of the earth as I've gone through. I wonder then if it's a break in the line. Perhaps this cable coming out of here isn't going to the lights, perhaps it's going to that socket. I think I'll reconnect that and we'll see if we get continuity then. No. So either the line or the earth is still disconnected somewhere. So the disconnection is this one here, which has the 1.5mm SY cable coming off it, which I thought was for lighting, but well, let's reconnect that and see if that gives us power at the hot tub. And there we have it. Shit. It's not a bad number in terms of earth fault loop impedance for a 32 amp circuit, but it does actually seem that this 1.5mm SY cable is an outgoing way from here, so I'm guessing there's no junction behind this one. It comes in via an armoured, it goes out by a undersized SY, fucking Y, I don't know, disappears under here somewhere where presumably it and daisy chains off this. Can you see behind this? Not a lot to see, is there, without getting the spade out and digging. Is that an SY? I reckon it probably is, isn't it? And then it goes from an SY to an armoured, down to the hot tub position. Oh boy. Just gave the game away, just turned around and there it was. There's our SY cable. Partially buried, partially surface run. Obviously linking that socket to that socket. All this cabling's a bit undersized really for the job, and if we have a look at this cable here, which is part of the armoured linking the hot tub to the sockets, I believe we can see on there it's stamped as 2.5mm and it's got a date of 2016, which suggests that all this is not very old. I mean, less than 3 years old, and it's all gone to cock like this, and that's just because it's not been installed properly in the first place. It's a lash-up job, and which is a damn shame, because, you know, obviously a lot of money's been spent here and it would have worked as originally installed, but it doesn't take long if you don't seal your outdoor electrics properly for problems to start occurring. And this business here with this SY cable going between that socket and that socket, this undersized SY cable, that's just fucking nuts. I don't know what they're thinking there. What the hell was that all about? Didn't have enough armoured on the van or something? I mean, you know, if it just beggars belief. Either a landscaper has thought, well, electrics is piss, I'll do this, and has made a fucking bodgery of it, or they've got in a sparky who doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. And the result is you have a very expensive bit of landscaping, which is now going to have a load of remedial work done. What we're going to have to do now, this first socket in the chain, obviously that's had it. And can't get to where the junction is, there's no junction going through it. We're going to whisker that off, stick some Wago connectors on the end, properly seal it, and that's that out of the way. This socket here I think is just about serviceable, might need just to do a bit of tidying up on it. This one down here, the only thing I can think of is that we perhaps put a junction there and a new section of armoured cable coming off it, although getting through this wall is going to be a pain in the arse. I've got a couple of builders on site here who look like they're not doing much. I might see if I can get them digging some earth out, and perhaps we'll if we can get to the end of that armoured cable, maybe we can junction it off in a suitable enclosure somewhere and take a new feed out to this socket, which we'll either clean up and reseal or we'll replace completely with one off the van, and again make sure it's all terminated properly. And then finally down there we'll stick a 2P+C connector to box on there so that they can plug the hot tub back in. we know that we're going to get a decent earth fault loop impedance number off it by the looks of it. We know that we can get the IR to around 9-10 mega ohms, which isn't great, but is serviceable enough. And that even might increase once we've replaced that section of cable. We'll have to see what that does. So we might get a higher number out of it before the end of the day. But it is what it is. I mean, I'd prefer to replace it all, but I can't dig all this up. I'd be mad. So I'm just going to have to do enough to get it serviceable until such time as someone can really get the whole lot sort of done properly, because we've still got things like buried junctions which are in goodness knows what condition. But you know, if the test numbers come out all right, then we can get out of it at the end of the day and they can have their hot tub back in action. But yeah, it's going to be a bit of work, and if it were done properly at the beginning, then you wouldn't have this ugly installation with cables on show, unsuitable for the job, accessories that are only a couple of years old and are failing because they've just not been installed properly. It's a shame, isn't it? And that's the thing, if you're getting builders or landscapers or someone in to do a major project, you need to make sure that they're getting the right partner trades in to do the specialist bits. And electrics, it is a specialist bit. It's all very well a builder or landscaper thinking, well, I can do this, but well, this is the kind of stuff we're looking at all the time. And it shows that they can't do it, because now they're paying us to put it right, or at least put it right as best we can, given the limited options we've got available to us while it's in this finished state. Again, not using a proper spark to plan and think about the job properly, because we've got cables everywhere and they look awful. We've also got a fair few of these things hanging around as well, which are actually gel filled, so at least that's something. They seem to be related to lighting, but look, it's just fucking everywhere, and all the planting's just armoured cable spiralling around all over the shop. That's it, son, get digging.
I'll reach China.
You found it?
No, I found it.
You haven't found treasure, have you? Oh, what's that? A brush?
Yeah.
You can keep that.
Leave anything in the ground, won't they?
Ironic that the armoured cable is buried so deep, but the non-armoured SY cable is just under the surface.
Yeah.
I feel rather guilty that you're doing all the hard graft here, James. Mind you, even if we get down there, are we going to have enough cable to work with? I was hoping for it to be sort of close to the surface and fairly slack.
Sort of like a loop on it, yeah.
Yeah. I think we've killed him.
There she blows.
Oh, yeah, you got it out eventually. You made a meal of that there, didn't you, James?
Neat work as always.
Right, I'm off to the nearest wholesaler, which is CEF in Stratford-upon-Avon. I'm going to pick up a torpedo so we can terminate that armoured under the ground and run a new feed off it in place of that SY cable. Okay, I'm back from my jaunt to Stratford and I have two things to show you. First of all is the Greg's Mexican Baguette, which is just a thing of fucking amazeballs, much recommended. And second, I was at CEF in Stratford and I haven't seen these in the White Branch, but they've got these shark splice connectors, which are made for things like armoured cable, from Whisker, so obviously a quality brand, and unlike the normal resin joints where you have to mix together the resin and pour it in to seal it all up afterwards. This is gel filled, so there's no messing about. So I think it costs a little bit more. I'm not sure what the price is, but it should make things a bit quicker on site. I'm going to use that to splice together the armoured that James has very kindly dug out over here. which look like jolly hard work, and I'm going to splice that to a new bit of armoured that we can use to get down to our socket position down there. It looks like it'll take up to a 5-core cable, and then we've got this fella itself. Can I open this one-handed? And there's our gel inside there. It's going to keep our connections watertight once it's all sealed up. It'll be a bit awkward. I have to trim the end of that armoured. I noticed that they're using grey as the earth. I use black as the earth and grey as the neutral, but as most sparkers do, I'm sure. Like I say, this is a 2.5mm. I've bought an RCBO that's at 20 amp. We're going to run the circuit at 20 amp now. I'm actually going to splice in the 6mm because I've got 6mm SWA on the van. The section that's going through there, that'll improve the earth fault loop impedance and voltage drop for what it's worth. It's very slightly. A couple of things to say about this thing. It's designed to be re-enterable, this whisker shark thing. This thing here. Normally I use a resin filled joint which isn't designed to be re-enterable. Because this is re-enterable, there's a couple of things. I've marked the cables to say which colour is doing what. I wouldn't ordinarily bother if it was one that you couldn't get back into again. Also, you do it up, you've got these Allen key grub screws, and it comes with an Allen key. I'm not a fan of Allen keys. I presume they give you that so you can get the right torque on it, but yeah, I don't like Allen keys. At least they aren't chewing up, so they're decent grub screws, although one did fall out and that made it a bit fiddly. Again, if it were a screw junction on a resin joint, I wouldn't have a problem with that, because that's made to be, once the resin's set, so screws ain't going to go anywhere. This I'm a bit more concerned that the grub screws could potentially come loose over time, so I don't know if I consider this a maintenance free junction. It certainly hasn't got any British Standard 5733 markings on it, but then it's okay here because this is in effect a temporary repair. We will hopefully be coming back to sort this out all properly. What we're doing today is just to get the hot tub back in action and to remove the fault, but really this needs some proper long-term TLC on all the garden electrics here. But if it were a joint that I was putting in the ground to be permanently buried, I think I'd still prefer the resin joint kit rather than this whisker affair. Old Uncle Albert here has taken this socket off, and sure enough, there's our 1.5mm SY and our armoured. We're going to leave this socket off and put another one of these shark things behind here so that we can get the armoureds properly terminated and their sheath properly earthed. Here's my shark junction with its cord grips on. So that's all sealed up and can be buried again. Second junction ready to be fitted together. That's where the old socket was. I'm just still doing the end point termination there. But that's the second one on. These core grip screws take quite a lot of bloody tightening. I'm using Nigel's PB Swiss screwdriver that he swears by. It's not a VDE one, but he seems to think they're rather ace. Nige, I dropped your screwdriver.
You're very good at that.
Don't think I can reach it, mate. Screwdriver's only cheap, isn't it? Just getting ready to bury this, and I suppose one advantage of this gel filled type thing is that if it's going in on its side, you don't have to wait for the resin to set as you would with a resin joint. Let's check line neutral to earth now. Oh, look at that, 21 on the nose. Right, time for our R1, R2. That's better, 0.81.
That's a good number.
What have we got on the sheath?
Go for it.
Open. So that sheath's probably disconnected somewhere else. Well,
you're pretty much guaranteed wherever they've jointed it, they haven't joined it.
Yeah, well, we'll join it at this end, so that at least the bits we've done are earthed. So we've got 0.81 as our R1, R2. Here we go, hot tub is on, warming up, bubbling away. I'm drawing just over 13 amps, so should be okay on our 20 amp circuit now that we've downgraded it to 20 amps. Come on, get your speedos out and get in. It's only 8.5 Celsius at the moment, it'll be bracing enough. Oh well, that's us done for another day. Oh, not before time too. There's our new position. Something a bit more accessible than where the old one was. Time to make our escape.